Hi guys, welcome back. We are on day 19, almost halfway. This is so awesome. And we are going to be going through page 47, the bottom, chapter 9, the Transfiguration. And then all the way through 48 and 49, Jesus heals a boy with an unclean spirit. And stopping right after Jesus again foretells death and resurrection.
We're right about at the halfway point, and as far as Mark is concerned, we're at the halfway point because I think Mark has 16 chapters. But we want to thank you guys for sticking with us, for doing this, for going and reading this with us, and hopefully some of this is making sense, and we hope that this can go and help your understanding and help your relationship with Jesus, so that it becomes real. Because we've seen people get Bibles, get life books, and they just sit there and collect dust. And our hope in doing this is that by us kind of going through this with you, we hope that it makes it a little bit easier. And this is something that has been in our hearts for a little while, and it has taken a while to actually get this going. So we thank you guys for being here with us.
Yes. Okay, so let's start on page 47 with the Transfiguration. That's a really big word. But to transfigure means to change your appearance. So one thing that really stuck out to me is that Jesus had 12 disciples, but for this experience, which was a very powerful experience, he only took 3 of the 12, Peter, James, and John. And that makes me think of a conversation that we had several videos ago with having that close, tight inner circle of friendships. It's good to have friends, but we all have to have those select couple or those select few that we can really go deep with. And so I think Jesus here was really going deep with these friends, and we see that. So turn to page 48. So what's happening is they're going up to this mountain, and right away, Jesus starts changing. His clothes become bright white. It says in here, brighter than anyone on earth could bleach them. And Elijah, which is a former prophet back in the Old Testament days, and Moses, with the big 10 Commandments, Moses, they appear with Jesus. And so it says that Peter, James, and John were terrified. I think I would be terrified too. And they did not know what to say. So they kind of fumbled something silly like, ooh, let's set up 3 tents for these guys. But what happened next is really, really cool. So a cloud came over where they were, and then God himself said, this is my beloved son, listen to him. And we've been seeing in the last chapters the disciples wrestling with who really is Jesus. Is he a prophet? Okay, I think he's more than a prophet because now the winds and the waves obey him. Okay, now he's asking us who we say he is. And here, I think it just solidifies, it makes it very clear. God himself says, this is my beloved son, listen to him. And as soon as God said that, Elijah and Moses left. Jesus is by himself. And Jesus says again, like he says every single time, don't tell anybody about this. And so they did. They kept the secret. And I think that's something else to note too, that when you have an intimate circle of friends, it's very important that you guys maintain that confidentiality. If a friend's going to pour out their heart to you and say some really deep things, you need to make sure that you're a friend that can be trusted with those deep things.
And so God, all these things that are written in the Bible, it's not just for facts. It's so that there's things that we can read, and hopefully ways that we can adjust some of our walk, adjust some of the things that we're doing. And right after this happens, where there's this miraculous, where Moses and Elijah are there, which they had already died many years before. So seeing them, that's pretty crazy. It goes right into yet Jesus doing it once again, where he does another miracle. And this one on page 49 is titled, Jesus heals a boy with an unclean spirit. And this starts with, it's a dad who he's looking for help. His son has had this going on, I think, since birth. and he needs help. And so, the person he's going to go to is Jesus, because Jesus has been doing big things. And then about a little bit over halfway down on page 49, it says, and Jesus asked his father, how long has this been happening to him? And he said, from childhood. And it has often cast him into fire and into water to destroy him. Okay, so there's an unclean stuff happening, and it's made this kid go into fire. I mean, if I go into fire, I'm going to have my skin burned. To go into water, so like the attempt to drown, like in the ocean. And it says to destroy him. But Dad keeps talking. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. So at that point, he's not even asking for restoration. He's not asking for healing right now. He's asking for him to go and show love, have compassion. And then it says, and help us. So he wants help, but I mean, he's just wanting Jesus's love and help. And he's not even necessarily asking for healing. He's just asking for help. And Jesus said to him, if you can. So he's kind of like, well,
wait, what?
Okay. And so Jesus says, because it's in red letters, if you can, all things are possible for one who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, I believe, help my unbelief. So right there, I mean, it sounds like he's struggling. It sounds like he has struggled, but he's saying, like, he loves his son. And I think that we see that there, where these fathers love their kids the same way the Father loves us. And so, and then right after that it says, and Jesus saw that the crowd came running together. He rebuked, so get out the unclean, so something unclean, bad spirit. And he says, you mute and deaf spirit, command you, come out of him and never enter him again. Okay, so Jesus goes and says that. You see this happen, and the disciples, I mean, they're confused. And so after this is all done, they're like, okay, Jesus, another miracle, did amazing things. And the disciples, after this is done, they privately go up to him and they say, why couldn't we cast it out? And I don't think they were asking it as far as like a humble, like as far as like a humility or a pride issue. I think they're like seriously like,
Confused.
Jesus, we've cast out some of these things before. We did this before. Why isn't this working? Like, this usually works. Like, we did this and that works. And Jesus goes and says, this kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer. And I mean, so, Jesus is, putting maybe an equation to it. Like, there's certain things that have to be done a certain way. But if there's something bad, an unclean spirit, something negative that's happening, I think that this is, and it's in red letters, so it's Jesus talking, and he's saying it can't be put out with anything, by anything but prayer. And I think that that's there also to help us remember the importance of prayer. When we are praying, that's going to happen. Mrs. Haley and I had heard at a marriage conference we went to, talked about divorce rates, and it said that the percentage of Christian couples, people that knew who Jesus was, the percentage of those couples that got divorced was 50%. So it's about half. And that's similar to what people that don't know Jesus. And it's like, well, that's not encouraging. But then we were looking at, they showed us information and said that the percentage of couples, married couples, that prayed together daily, the percentage that prayed together daily, the divorce rate with them was less than 2%. So you drop from 50%, half people getting dropped out, to less than 2%. That's like going from getting a 50% on a test to over a 98% on a test. That's a little different. An F to an A, almost an A plus. And I think we have to remember just the power of prayer, and that's not here on accident. And this is written in the Bible, and Jesus said this. And I know this is talking about healing and a miracle, but marriage restoration. And I know a lot of you guys aren't married yet, but for families to know that, and as far as for you might be getting married someday, just that remembrance that, hey, if I want this to work, we need to pray together daily. And it doesn't say it has to be a specific prayer, but it's praying. It's coming before our Heavenly Father and talking to Him. And that's a good start.
And I want to encourage you too that if you are in a relationship, because high school, that's the time, don't date somebody that's not willing to come alongside you and believe the same things that you believe and pray to the same God that you're praying to. I cannot stress to you enough the importance of, in the Bible, it calls it being equally yoked. Okay, so that means like a yoke is like a burden, that oxen place on their backs to like carry things, right? So when you're unequally yoked, that means that one person is carrying more of the load than the other. So God calls us to be in a relationship, to be in marriage relationships that are equally yoked, meaning you're both on the same track of walking with Jesus and following him. And I can tell you that both Mr. Haley and I, before we were following Jesus wholeheartedly, struggled with that in high school. And to me, that caused a lot of unnecessary heartache. And so I wish that I would have heard something like this back in that time, because that could have saved me a lot of pain.
And I want to add on to that I heard this once, and I don't remember who I'd heard it from, but it was already after I had dated some people that I knew weren't supposed to be my wife, and what I had heard was that if I can't potentially see this person being marriage material, if they potentially are not God's best for me, there's no point in spending time with them. It's not that you can't say hi and be friends with someone, but if you're going to consider dating them and enter into a relationship, if they're not potentially God's best, it's not going to happen. And I know the thought is like, well, I can make them go to church with me. I just need to pray more for them. Well, we say that sometimes just because they're handsome or they're pretty, and we're trying to make an excuse. But the thing is God's best is God's best, and he knows what he's doing. And just like God provided in my marriage to give us, to give you a best friend, to give you a partner to go and do life with. And it's something that we don't want second best. And the thing is if you're going to wait for what God can do, it's not going to be easy sometimes, but there's no use in wasting your time, because if you're just dating, I'm just going to date him right now, just maybe. Well, what if God's preparing God's best right now, and then and that God's best, he or she comes around,
you miss out,
and you're busy dating someone else, you're not ready. So and in the process of while you're waiting for God's best, you make your list, think of all the things you need and stuff you hope for, and in this perfect husband or perfect wife, then start making yourself meet it. You want someone who's going to be loving. Good. Make sure you're going to be loving. You want someone who's going to be trustworthy. Good. Make sure you're being trustworthy. You want someone who's going to be faithful. Good. Make sure you're being faithful. And if you're doing these things where you desire to go and you're trying to go and be the best husband or wife that you can be, and basically getting yourself ready at some point to get married, there's no time that's too soon. You could be in 4th grade or 8th grade or 12th grade, and the thing is if it's not someone who potentially could be God's best, there's no point in getting into that. You still be friends, but just not that.
So the last little section, very simple. It's talking about how Jesus again is telling the disciples, okay, the Son of Man is going to be delivered into the hands of men. They're going to kill him, and in 3 days he is going to rise again. And the disciples still, I think they finally wrapped their head around the fact that who Jesus is, but I think they're still not understanding what that means. Rising again, being dead for 3 days, how is that possible? So they were a little bit intimidated to ask him too. So I'm curious to see what happens this next time. So for the next section, you are going to read Who is the Greatest on the bottom of page 50. And anyone not against us is for us on page 51.
If there's questions that you have based on reading or based on things that we said, if there's stuff that you have questions about, you are more than welcome to go and call or text. The Refuge phone number is 559-410-0655. You can also email us, refugearmona@gmail.com. And we would love to try to help. Not that we have all the answers, but we have made several mistakes. So when you make enough mistakes, after a while, you start to learn from some of them. So we'd like to help. And if there's things that just specifically that you would like prayer for, please let us know. And if you want us to, we have incredible friends who are willing to go and pray as well. And we could go, if you wanted us to, we could even get a group of people that are praying specifically for needs and things that you have. So thank you guys once again. We hope to talk to you soon.
Bye.